listeners, and welcome to today's episode of Show Me Your Prompt. I am crazy excited for this conversation. Lyren, tell us about what you're working on, who you are, what you're doing, all the things intro, and then we'll jump in.
Okay. If I start explaining what I'm working on, hopefully no one thinks that I have some mental disorder. But I'm working on a number of things kind of at once, and they're really separate streams. So I have a major client that I'm assisting with leadership and development. They've stood up what they call a leadership academy, and I'm working with them. They're a national organization to work with their upcoming leaders. So that is very much, I would say, in the heart space, a little bit in the creativity space of human connection. And it's work that I really super enjoy, is like, the top kind of work that I do. But it is part of what I offer in my organization, my company, Profabula. The other stream of work that I'm doing is I contracted with Pluralsight as an author fellow, and I'm spending 40 hours a week, so it's like almost like full time that I'm working with them. And it's also like super enjoyable work that I really love. So it is related to, I would have to say, evangelizing, for Pluralsight service, products, capabilities, public speaking, which I really, really enjoy doing, class space facilitation. Just before getting to you, I was late because I was conducting a 4-hour facilitation on agentic AI with members of the Pentagon, which is pretty cool. Wow. And it was kind of round 2 of that. But I've been to Yankee Stadium for, facilitation, to San Francisco Giants Stadium, and I'm going to Detroit Tigers next week. So it's just like, if I could dream up, an idea of work life, this is it,
Wow. I love that. Well, you're living the dream. Let's jump in. Let's talk about AI. So when did you first hear or start actually diving into AI?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I would have to say you could break it up into 2 periods of time, right?
Okay.
There's a period of time that is pre-ChatGPT, which is most people's exposure to AI, this phenomenally new capability that really seemed like you were engaging a human at the level of Alan Turing's, question of, are you talking to a machine or a human, right? So that's this like wonderful capability. But I'm familiar with it in my practice, of technology, and specifically in training people for expert systems and knowledge management systems from a security perspective. That AI, from my experience, has been around for a very long time. It's just that it transitioned from what we would call deterministic systems that give you a solid answer of a yes or a no, a calculation. And they're also, deterministic systems are also known as expert systems, right? To what you would call probabilistic systems. They're non-deterministic, they're not rule-oriented. This was, I was kind of starting off like everybody else in that new space of probabilistic systems.
Right. And now, whether you're having a full-on chat with Claude or whatever one you're using, here we are. So that was your backstory discovery. What do you feel like you're using AI most for now? Or what does your deep prompting look like? Where are you at with it?
Yeah, so if I were to just like review my Claude interactions, I would have to say it is at a thought partner level.
Okay.
Um, just the other day, with the client that I was just talking about, that I'm helping them in their inaugural Leadership Academy space.
Mhm.
Um, just the other day, I was getting some feedback from the participants about the capstone.
Mm.
And so I was like, I need to give this some thought, but I don't have a whole lot of time to
Right.
do that. And I want to see if I can set up what the problem is with
Mm.
the sort of anxiousness that's coming back about the capstone, which I think had to do with ambiguity. Um, and if I could set that up as a problem, give it some
Mhm.
feedback, what kind of advice would it provide for going forward? And I would have to say it was clear, clean, good advice that took me a little bit further down
Mhm.
the causal
Mm.
issue rather than the
Right.
symptoms, right? The symptoms of anxiety, the symptoms
Right.
of, you know, delaying, back to, well, is the capstone actually formulated in the following ways? And then some questions to ask. And that was
Yeah.
awesome. And I even shared back with my client, these are some responses that I got from Claude based upon this problem. And it's giving me
Mhm.
some thinking, some ideas that we should explore. So I
Yeah.
would have to say it's more as a thought partner,
Yeah.
that's super smart, um, a little bit inexperienced about life,
Yeah.
but super intelligent. I kind of
Yeah.
compare AI right now, at least generative AI in the GPT world, as
Mhm.
a kid who's locked in a library and has access to everything, but
That is
never,
my favorite
right?
description.
Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't go outside and play, doesn't know anything about the outside world, doesn't know anything about adulthood. So AI is kind of
Right.
like that. Like you can entrust it with, getting you information that does absolutely need to be verified and checked and validated. But
Right.
that's kind of where I am in my relationship to it right now.
That is a really good way of saying it. I actually asked something the other day and I was like, "Are you sure? I think it could be so and so." And it was like, "Oh, you're right. I didn't take that into account." I was like, "That's a problem." Like, that's exactly how my daughter would talk to me when she knows she's right, but doesn't understand the full context of the human piece. So I was like, "Yes, correct."
Yeah.
Um, with that said, you talk to a lot of people every day in the tech space, especially. Where do you feel like everyone's skill set is with it? I think people were like, oh, Claude has been rolled out in ChatGPT, but like, do you think people are just still scraping the top or still full or diving deeper?
Yeah, that's a great question. From I would call it limited because by no means am I creating scientifically significant data based upon this response, but
Right.
it's all anecdotal. But from those anecdotal interactions that I've had with some very major companies
Hmm.
in the Fortune
Right.
100 space, I would have to say I have started looking at how people are utilizing AI with three words that I coined.
Okay. Okay.
So the,
All
the
right.
first one, and these words are like more for me than for anyone
Yes.
because people will look at them like that's dumb. But the first one I call is explorement. So
Mm.
explorement, I think, is where most people are, and it's a combination, it's a contraction of exploring and experimenting, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
companies are in this explorement space. I think most of them are, and you
Hmm.
see some actual data on this, empirical data
Right.
from your foresters of the world and your gardeners of the world that say
Yes.
that upwards of 70 to 90% of companies have experienced zero ROI. So that tells you they're still, in that experimenting space. I see another set of maturity in the second of three levels as being builderness. So it's a combination of building in the wilderness. And so
keep going. I love it.
So builderness is that they are actually creating and composing capabilities that are useful. And these are things that may be around 2 years from now, right? So they're building things, but they're not building it in a holistic way. So they're not building it from the standpoint of, okay, so how does this integrate at an enterprise level? Or how does this speak to our enterprise architecture that should be overarching across the whole organization? They're still doing weird things where they're, maybe building something, but then not making any kind of manifest connection to the architecture that they already have. So that to me is very strange. It makes me feel like I'm crazy when I hear about it. And then there's this last level of Implacement, and I think that's the most mature. So it's implementation cycles. And so Implacement to me is that you're in these fast iterations of implementation of artificial intelligence services, capabilities, products, consumption, and it is in a governed way.
Okay. You said something that I want to come back to. So you talked about Gartner, Forrester, Fortune companies doing statistics on profit and ROI with AI. And people aren't seeing the uptick that they want. But yet you look at it and it's like layoffs are still happening. Hiring is froze. VC money is hard to come by. Like, where's the disconnect with that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think if you look at some of the leading indicators, and I don't have a whole lot of faith in these, but the leading indicators say that there is little correlation between AI and the current hiring freeze and the layoffs that are there. I tend to not believe that. And it's not because I think AI is so, it's at this level of great productivity or at its Implacement level, right? It's because I think organizations are doing the same darn practice that they've done for years, is that they behave in there's a word for it, where they're almost predicting bad results in the future. There's a single word that describes that, but they're behaving in a pessimistic way, I guess. So pessimistically, they're looking at what's going on in the future and they're saying, oh yeah, we're not right sized for where we're supposed to be. I believe that's what's going on. Again, the prognosticators who are more intelligent than I, and this is their job, they say, nah, those things aren't connected. It's hard for me to believe that they're not. Because organizations have done this in the past. Major organizations, your what they call hyperscalers. So your AWSs, your Azures, your Google Clouds, they have imminently let people off, have let people go, like before there's an issue. It's like they look at it. So this has been behavior, I think, that's always been out there. I think that's what's going on now.
Yeah. So what's next with AI? Where do you see it going?
I see us getting to a place where the next big release is made that actually solves to a lot of the automation questions and a lot of the mundane activity replacement questions, activities that do not make a direct impact on ROI. I think that next release is actually months away. And what I would compare it to is when Model Context Protocol was released by Anthropic in 2024, I believe. It changed the whole game of manually writing tools so that you can connect, agents to resources. So now you don't have to manually, replicate or duplicatively replicate a tool. You just say, hey, I'm going to use MCP to go out and call this thing. I think that next big thing is waiting out there. And I think what that's going to produce is the actual realization of a relief of, things that are super manual in an organization being brought to automation. So I think that's where we're headed next.
Okay. How do the humans stay on top?
I always say, and I know this is an often repeated phrase, that AI will not replace you, but the person who knows AI will. So I think that's a huge thing for staying on top, is to stay educated. Anthropic has training that is all free, basically. Like, if someone who's interested in the future and whatever's going on currently has not done that, that's on them. So I say definitely do that. The other thing I think is really important, I believe it was a religious leader / philosopher, and I forget the name and I should look it up, but he talked about what's called AI effervescence. And I love that term because it's almost like this Pollyannish or overly positive view of what AI is going to produce. And I have some pause there, the same way that I had with the beginning stages and phases of the cloud. What I would tell people is that, guess what? AI, or I would say cloud, but now we're saying AI is not going to make bad governance better. What AI will do is it will accelerate whatever you're doing. So if you're doing poorly and you're producing bad results, you're going to produce them faster. So to me, that's the human interconnection that I think is super important. And obviously that's very layered. It goes into security, governance, and all the rest. But yes, that's what I think.
Well, all right, Lyren, this was amazing. Thank you for sharing. Any parting tips?
Stay fabulous as a human. That's what my tip is. Everybody stay fabulous. Be human.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.